Welcome back to our extensive trip through automotive history here in the Petersen Automotive Museum Vault. Again, my name is Andy, and we're about to go through a time that was a defining time for car design, and some of my favorite cars, post-World War II sports cars. All right, so now, personally, this is my favorite car in the museum. It's a 1953 Nash Healey, and this is one of 400. It has the Nash engine, the Healey Silverstone sports car chassis, and a Pininfarina body. So it's going from America to England to Italy, and then shipped back to America for a retail price of about $6,000, whereas you could get a Corvette of the same year for about $3,500. So they only sold 400, and then, as you know, Nash merged with Hudson to form AMC, and Austin partnered with Healey. Here is a 1971 De Tomaso Pantera. What do these two cars and several other cars we're going to see have in common? The Italian styling and the American drivetrain. This has a Ford 351 Cleveland engine mid-body. So it did have mechanical troubles, reputation for mechanical troubles. And this one was Elvis Presley's, one of his favorites. And why wouldn't it be? Over here we have a couple very rare Porsches. That is a 1955 Porsche. A lot of people look at it and assume it's a 356. Technically it is, but it's a Continental. That's the nameplate on the side because Max Hoffman, who was the Austrian importer living in New York City, he helped the German companies spread their wings throughout America, and he was helping Porsche, which was kind of the young kid on the block between BMW and Mercedes. And he recommended that Americans didn't want the numbering system. They wanted something that evoked a reaction, and Continental sounded great. So they made the bodies, they put the two holes in the body and slapped the nameplates in there until Ford, and they started selling them until Ford said, you know, Continental's a name we use. Did you not Google it? And so Porsche had to scramble. They took out the Continental, but they had the body with the two holes that were this big, so they figured European. So there were very few of the Continentals built and very few of the Europeans built. This is one we're going to talk about in a moment. I want to talk about this car here, 1947. This is a Ferrari 125S from 1947. Why is that year significant? Ferrari was not making cars with his nameplate before 1947. This 125S is the very first Ferrari. It is one of two, and it was 118 miles an hour. He did drive it out of the factory himself, and then he gave it to his race car driver. It did not win the first race, and by the second race, he started winning, and the name Ferrari was born. And then his iconic logo was simply his good luck charm. Like Cavallino Rampante, the prancing horse, was what he painted on all his race cars. He got the idea from a World War I fighter pilot that would paint it on his planes. And he throws it against that yellow that is so glorious. That's just one of the colors of the Modena, Italy flag. But again, American drivetrain, Italian styling. That's what we saw with the Pantera, the Nash Healey. And that's what Carroll Shelby, Jim Hall, and Gary Laughlin were thinking about when they went to Ed Cole, the head of engineering for Chevy, and said, listen, you've got a problem with this first generation of Corvette. Solid axle suspension, it was a stiff ride. They couldn't figure out the right engine. Fiberglass made the doors shake, hoods rattle. So we're gonna help you out. You give us 3 chassis. There's a guy in Italy, right across from Enzo Ferrari, is in Modena, Italy, Sergio Scaglietti. By the way, the Modena, Italy flag, the yellow, there's that yellow in the Scaglietti flag. He used both the yellow and the blue. And so you give us those chassis, he's going to build us a body, we're going to solve your Corvette problem. And for 18 months, Shelby is overseeing the project. He's racing as well, and Jim Hall is, and one of two things happens. Either Enzo goes across the street to look at his cars in Sergio, his buddy Sergio's factory, and says, oh, you got these 3 here. I notice they're not mine, so you can keep working on them and never work on mine again, or get rid of these, and we're happy. Or the General Motors higher-ups found out that this project was going on, and they said, we're not spending any more money on any more high-performance cars, so shut it down. The 3 bodies, unfinished, went back to Texas, where Carroll Shelby was done with it. He's like, all right, I'm gone. So Hall and Laughlin finished the projects. They each took a car, and this would have been Shelby's. So we got it here now. According to Carroll Shelby, however, he said that the General Motors board, knowing him as a race car driver, was worried that he was building a Corvette to blow their Corvette out of the water. He said, I wasn't, but I'm gonna do that now. And this is his Corvette. It is a 1965 Shelby Cobra. The Scaglietti was a 59, by the way. That was the year that Shelby won Le Mans. So the Shelby Cobra is one of 348. This is a continuation model. You'll notice the roll bars would not have been there originally, making for an even less safe ride, because this was the fastest performance car in 1965 at 160 miles an hour. But this did blow Corvette out of the water. It did not beat Corvette sales because by 65, the second generation was around. Corvette had solved their problem with a split axle transmission, or a split axle suspension. So it made for a more comfortable ride, and the engine engine was top notch. You have a rare car here, a one of one. It's a Canara, just done by a guy named Ray Canara, which shows that wedge shaping. It's about 20 years ahead of when wedge shapes came into prominence. So that's pretty cool. He was an Art Center College of Design graduate. A couple Ferraris here, one of my favorites, the 365 GTC4. We have a couple of art cars over here. One from local guy Kenny Scharf down in Culver City. You can tell by looking at that color scheme what era he was born in, the era of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. At 59, little Austin Healey. We mentioned the Nash Healey. This was Austin Healey a few years later, the Sprite, or the Bug Eye, as was called here, and Frog Eye in France. Here's a 1993 Morgan. A lot of people look at this and assume it's a 37. They've made their cars the same since the beginning. Still has a wooden frame in it, and still has a belt to keep its pants up. Now we have a interesting car. We mentioned General Motors. John DeLorean was a big executive at General Motors. He leaves in 1973. And after he leaves, he goes to start his own company, naming it after himself, of course. 8 years of struggle. He's in Belfast, Northern Ireland. He's trying different engines. Nothing's working. Finally, the car company is ready, and he's proudly ready to promote it in 1981. And one of those promotions was with American Express, who had their gold card. He said, I'll make a gold car, where you can sell it in the American Express Christmas catalog in 1981. It went for $86,000, which was more than 3 times the price of a stainless steel DeLorean. This is 24 karat gold plate, by the way. Really, if you scrape it down, it's about an ounce or 2 in your hand, so it didn't make up the difference between pricing of $86,000 and the $25,000 stainless steel DeLorean. But John was very optimistic. He said, don't worry, we're gonna sell 100. And to his credit, they came up just shy. They sold 2. This is one of the 2. It was purchased by a Snyder, Texas bank president who kept it in a glass temperature-controlled case in his lobby for many years. We're back post-World War II, and to give you an idea what was going on, a couple of things are happening. Materials are freed up, no longer needed for the war effort, so they are available to car makers, including entrepreneurs who might want to take on the big 3. That became troublesome, as I'll mention in a moment. And also, car designs are exactly the same after the war as before the war. The big 3 haven't changed. First one really to change, first mass-produced car to change their designs was Studebaker after the war. But this is what a couple of entrepreneurs wanted to fix. One of them, you might have heard the name Preston Tucker, 1988's movie Tucker. A Man in His Dream, I believe, with Jeff Bridges. Francis Ford Coppola directed it. And so what he was building was a car for safety. And this is a gorgeous car. It has kissing doors on the side. It has a rear engine. It's actually a Franklin helicopter engine. He was gonna go air-cooled, he went water-cooled. So there's nothing under this is the front trunk, or the frunk as I always say. It has glass, the windshield will pop out upon impact. The Cyclops headlight, of course, if you turn the car 10 degrees, it will turn on. Padded dashboard and a safety cell under the driver's side. He also added seat belts. So that's where the big three, they were worried. It's such a gorgeous car that they were worried he was going to be a viable threat to their competition. So they started a smear campaign and said, well, if it has seatbelts, it can't be a safe car. You're actually safer catapulting from the windshield than you would be getting hung by the seatbelt, blah, 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 blah. And so he said, all right, I'll get rid of the seatbelts. Well, he still had difficulty getting the materials because, again, they were freed up, just not really available to the little guy like you or me, or Preston Tucker. And so he started selling stock options to get money to get parts that he needed. And he was selling stock options for a car, but he wasn't yet making the car. So he got sued. The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, got involved. And they said, you're a scam, you're a fraud. I don't know if the big three had anything to do with it, but you can imagine that they kind of prodded the SEC to look into it. And we are suing you. And he went to court. However, in a famous scene, and you can fast forward this if you don't want any spoilers, but in a famous scene in the movie, this is true to life, to get out of the conviction, to get acquitted, he showed the jury that he was making cars, and he paraded his fleet of cars outside the courthouse, and they were like, yeah, he's making them. Case dismissed. Unfortunately, his reputation was ruined. He never made this car. I believe he went to South America to try making cars with the company down there, but he was a cigarette smoker and died 8 years later before his name could be recognized by such a movie. Now, at the same time that Preston Tucker was in Chicago at a Dodge airplane hangar, Gary Davis was here in Van Nuys, California, about 10 miles northwest of here, in a small airplane hangar, and he was making these cars for the family. Yeah. This is called a Davis divan, and a divan is a couch. He was intending for the entire family to sit like a couch, 1, 2, 3, 4. You go, what family of 4 could sit like that? Well, in a promotional photo, he took a picture of 4 flight attendants. But it's an aluminum body. It's a 3-wheeled car. He put the 3rd wheel in the front, deriving it, being inspired by a Frank Curtis, was a coach builder and a race car builder. And he had a 3-wheeled race car called the California. So it's 3 wheels. It has a Windsor engine in there, and it was so lightweight in this airplane-style body, these hidden headlights, which really look freaky when they're open, but anyways. And it was supposed to have 35 to 50 miles per gallon. It was supposed to get 35 to 50 miles per gallon in 1948. And it was supposed to go 70 to 90 miles an hour. Now, you go in 70 to 90 miles an hour with 4 family members and then you take a sharp turn. I don't want to know what's going to happen. But anyways, he also had trouble getting materials, although he had a lot of people interested, whether it be investors. He had employees, he had dealers ready to sell, and he had customers ready to buy, but he couldn't get the materials fast enough. And they said, where's our car? You got to give me more time. I got to get these materials, he said, and they sued him for fraud. He goes to court and he loses. Convicted of fraud, goes to jail for 1952 to 1954, and always claiming his innocence. And I'm not here to judge, I'll take his word for it. But he was not done yet. While in jail, he had the design of the car and he still had the valid patent. So he said, all right, I'm looking at this and I want to hit something real bad because I don't believe I belong in here. And so he looks at the design and says, all right, this isn't going to sell. I'm persona non grata in the automotive industry now, so I am going to change it up a little. I'm going to lop off the top. I'm going to narrow the body so it seats 1, maybe 2 if you put a child right next to you. And I'm going to put a rubber bumper around the whole thing and license it to a company in Massachusetts called Dodgem Bumper Cars. And there is the bumper car. He retired very well off to Palm Springs, so he had a second act. Now we end in this. It's a 1954 Kaiser Darren 161. Again, American drivetrain, Italian styling, but it was done by an American. Kaiser Fraser Motors was one of those companies after the war that came and went. They were around about 10 years. And they used Howard Darren, who was a designer who had a shop in Santa Monica, and he would design for Studebaker and Packard, but he spent time in Europe, so he knew how they were doing it at this design, and he knew how to do fiberglass. He was a fiberglass pioneer. So he gives this design with a pocket door, which I think is really cool until maybe the 3rd time you bang your knee on the thing, and then you're not going to want the car anymore. And it's a cute little car that would have been America's first American-made sports car. The prototype was 1952. It predated the Corvette. However, it did not come out till its one production year in 1954, and they sold 435 of these, and we have one right here. Gorgeous little car. We're going to enter the next section, which contains more cars from the post-World War II, whether it's sports cars or production cars like the General Motors line, Bel Air, Nomad, Bel Air, 56, 57. And General Motors, what they had going for them at this time was playing off an early CEO, Alfred Sloan, and his phrase, "a car for every purse and purpose." And at this point, General Motors was dominating. They had Harley Earl overseeing all the design, and he loved his tail fins, which went through 59, which, strangely enough, that's when Harley Earl retired. So Bill Mitchell took over and said, no more tail fins. But in this era, General Motors offered, with all their brands, Cadillac, Buick, Oldsmobile, Chevy, Pontiac, they offered 460 different models / color combinations. You could get two-tone on the interior. You'll notice the red and white. You'll notice the seafoam green and white, or two-tone on the exterior down by the skirts. So mixing and matching every 6 months, get a new car, new look, whatever you wanted. That's what General Motors was all about. But in the middle row here, we have a diplomatic section. And so some of our iconic cars that you won't see anywhere else. In 1942, this is a Ford Lincoln, and it is the first fully armored presidential limousine in America. This was for FDR. Now, it is a 7,000-pound car. The bulletproofing, they've got 8 panes of glass, but though it'll stop the glass, it will not stop cigarette smoke, and FDR was a big cigarette smoker, so if you've got an 1.25 inch glass, you've got an 1.25 inch door jamb, and there's chrome plating to snap shut over that to prevent Roosevelt from burning the car down. This car was taken to Yalta for the peace conference in 1945, and before Stalin met with Churchill and FDR, it's said that FDR and Churchill met in the back together. It's the first car with FM radio in America because the Secret Service didn't want any interference while people were listening to Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller on the AM dial, so they switched it to FM. It also, there's the flags there, you'll notice, have only 48 stars. This is before we added such states as Hawaii and South Jersey. 1952. It's a 52 Chrysler Imperial Parade Phaeton. As I said before, Phaeton means windowless. And it is a 56 body rebuild. So those shrewd viewers at home who are looking at it going, that's a 56, correct. Chassis, 52. He went in a Cadillac for his first inauguration and this one in his second inauguration. And it was rebodied. That was the forward look that was designed at Chrysler, overseen by another iconic designer, a guy named Virgil Exner. We have many of his cars here. And you would have seen Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon in this car. This was the car kept in Detroit, because as you know, the White House can't accept gifts. So the companies, whether it's Ford or Chrysler or General Motors and their Cadillacs, they kept them on site and they would ship them ahead whenever the diplomat or celebrity needed them. And in fact, there was one kept in New York City. This was kept in Detroit. This was kept in New York City, the blue one, which was used in a ticker tape parade for the Apollo 11 astronauts. We have one in Los Angeles every January 1st. It's taken out and it participates with the Rose Bowl president in the backseat at the Rose Bowl parade. We have one cool car here. I want to get away from diplomatic for a second. This is a 1959 Scimitar. It was commissioned by a company which got into metals. So they were trying to promote the metals that they had, and one of those metals was aluminum. And they wanted to show the viability of aluminum on a production car. And so they hired a friend of the CEO's, Brooks Stevens, famous, iconic industrial designer. He's known for doing so many things, just a variety of things. He worked on packaging. He did the wide-mouth peanut butter jar, perhaps most iconic, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. That was his work. But he did this. It's a Chrysler New Yorker under the hood, and it's one of 3, but really it's one of 1. It's the only hardtop convertible version of it. There's a town car and a convertible. Here's a 1957 Continental Mark II. It's got the Lincoln Star, but Lincoln and Continental were different divisions at that time. And in fact, this drove Ford to put Continental under the Lincoln brand the very next year. If you see a Mark III, that's called the Lincoln Continental. The reason is this is a primarily hand-built car. It retailed for about $10,000, or at least cost about, it retailed for that, but it cost more to build. So they realized it's a loss leader. Although if they had Mike Todd around, he bought 3 of these. He was Elizabeth Taylor, he was a producer, and Elizabeth Taylor, one of her 7 husbands. And this was one of his cars that he bought 3. The Studebaker Avanti. The beginning of the Studebaker story was 1852. By the end, 1963. Well, it ended in 66, but this was a car where they were trying to keep up with the changing times and struggling. They hired another great industrial designer, Raymond Loewy. Now, he was most known for the glass Coke bottle, but he did this in 40 days, and this was America's, they billed it as America's first 4-passenger high-performance personal car. And it's straight lines, symmetry is a thing of the past, no grille in the front, even though it's a front-engine car, and fiberglass. And that's where the problems came up. Now, there was demand up here. It was featured in Motor Trend. People wanted this car. 289 cubic inch engine, got a little kick to it, a sports car for the family. But their production equipment was built for steel, and they put the fiberglass built car on the production equipment, and the fit and finish didn't come through. And by the time they were finally done, demand had dropped off. People went with other cars, and Studebaker had to move their factory to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and 3 years later they were out of business. Good run though. Now here is our only real-life James Bond car, and I say that because it is a fully armored 10,000-pound 1988 Mercedes 500 SEL. You can't shoot out the tires. It's got tear gas. It's got airplane-style headlights, which will blind you if you get too close. And there's a rod underneath that has little holes for the oil drums to give you the oil slick. If you've ever, like me in the 1980s, played Spy Hunter, this would be your car. That was Ferdinand Marcos, the former leader of the Philippines. Now here is a 1979 Hongqi. It is the second production car to come out of China. Hongqi means red flags, and there were usually red flags on the front. Farmers, workers, soldiers, that's what they represent of the Chinese society. Now here is a 1978 Mercedes 600. Mercedes 600 was the most expensive car in the market through the 60s and 70s. It was because of the hydraulics and the pneumatics. The windows just don't go up and down. They go up, they go down. They go up, they go down. And they made 2,600 or so for us wealthy folks. You know, me, you, Hugh Hefner, John Lennon, Elvis, Jack Nicholson, they all had one. Then there were 59 offered, the long wheelbase, which is called the Pullman, and a Landaulet option. This is a Pullman 6-door convertible option, were offered to heads of state. So 59 of those were built. This one was Saddam Hussein's, which we have. Now, it is not an armored car. We have the running boards for the guards. That's how we felt safe. Now, here is one of our prized possessions. This is on loan to us from the American Honda Motor Company. In 1967, it is an N600. Now, again, shrewd listeners and viewers would question why there's a 1967 N600 when the N600 didn't come out until 1970. So the engine is here, the spare tire is here, so it's a little small car, and they said we're going to enter the American market in 1967 because it's a more fuel-efficient car, and there's, you know, gas issues that are about to crop up. So they ship out 50 of them, and they go on a nice promotional tour after docking here on the West Coast, promotional tour through the United States, and they get up by the northern Midwest, where it gets quite cold. The heat doesn't work, so they can't warm up, and they say, oh, we have to scrap all 50 cars. And the cars were scrapped, except one. This one was put aside. But then, somebody lost track of it. 42 years later, it's found in a swap meet here in Southern California by Tim Mings, he works on a lot of Hondas, Honda expert, and you know, he's just impulse buying. I'll take some of those, give me some of these, maybe a couple of those, and for $1,000, he's like, oh, I'll give this, give me this, I'll strip it down. But he's not even paying attention to it for a while. Finally, he wants to see what he's got. It's in derelict condition. And he's scraping the VIN number like a scratch-off lottery ticket, 000001. This is the first Honda in America. So he calls Honda, they have him restore it. Like I said, Honda didn't officially enter the market until 1970 with the N600. And then in 1973, they came out with a little model called the Civic, and they've done okay since then. We have a Fiat Chilette, which is a little beach car with wicker seats. I love that. There's a Coyote, the Dune Buggy by Dean Jeffries, 1973, the great coach builder for Hollywood. I believe we have the only, if not one of the only, if not the only, Popemobile that is not in Vatican City. I haven't seen one. So outside of Vatican City. So this is 1998. His Holiness John Paul II was going to Mexico City. And he was almost 80 years old, and he was a man of the people, well-loved. And he wanted to get out of the car and meet among his constituents. So he calls ahead. This is a Cadillac Coupe de Ville. And Cadillac, he tells Cadillac, I want to get out and this and that. They say, we hear you, Your Holiness. We're going to make it with a wider door, retractable steps. When you open the thing, these steps come down and His Holiness can come and meet with everybody. It's got the Office Depot style chair here, which he, I'm sure, loved. The problem is it's missing one key element, and that is the bubble. The Secret Service of His Holiness, the Swiss Guard, they were not pleased. So they had another car waiting for him after Eureka Coachworks built this. And when His Holiness did arrive in Mexico City, two cars were waiting. I believe the other was a Chevy with the Bubble-mobile. But he did bless this car, and therefore it is no longer a Cadillac DeVille, it is a Popemobile. So in 1969, there is a photographer at the LA Sentinel by the name of Cliff Hall. And he's more than a photographer, he's friends with his subjects. He became friends with Sidney Poitier and Marvin Gaye, and he became the first personal photographer of Muhammad Ali. Cliff sees a problem. He sees that a lot of young people are on motorcycles zipping in and out of traffic. And if you remember the 60s, a lot of blind spots, a lot of big cars. So he thought, I want something safer. He made fiberglass derby racers for his kids at home and said, I want to put a fiberglass body on essentially a motorcycle and protect our young, kids, our urban drivers more soundly. And so he did try a motorcycle engine, it didn't work. So he put a mid-body 78 horsepower Subaru engine into this. He had a Lewis Corwin, and this is a 69 Corwin, invest 100 grand. And he made this car, he unveils it at the 1969 auto show, and he did have fans. His friend Muhammad Ali loved it. I don't think he sat in it, but he loved it. And he did have financing discussions with Marvin Gaye, however, it didn't work. He wanted to make these cars in Los Angeles, so create jobs and sell them to all cities. The beautiful thing, what the museum did about a decade ago, we don't do many restorations here, but this was one of the cars we had a crowdfunding campaign and we restored it in time. Cliff Hall got to see his baby back to normal. And here is our final diplomatic car. It is a 1962 Chaika. Chaika means seagull. You'll notice the seagull on the front, the logo. And this was Khrushchev's. It's a Kremlin official car. Khrushchev had two. This one was his, and it may have also been Yuri Gagarin, which was a gift from Khrushchev, the first cosmonaut in space. And when Yuri passed away in '68, the two of them, including this one, went to the Hungarian president, and then they ended up in America, and we have one here. How you doing? Still with me? It's a lot to take in, isn't it? That's the end of part 2. Won't you please come back for part 3 on this channel to see the remainder of the vault.